China is the birthplace of many things: kung fu, gunpowder, noodles. There is one thing that originated in China that spread across the world many millennia ago that is pronounced in only one of two different ways, no matter where you are in the world today. Somehow, this word has defied any shift in pronunciation and has remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years. This is the story of the spread of tea. Legend has it that thousands of years ago, Emperor Shennong was born with the body of a man and the head of a bull. He spoke within 3 days of his birth, was able to walk in a week, and was able to plow a field by himself by the age of 3, supposedly. He gave the Chinese people the cart and plow, yoked horses, tamed ox, and lands cleared by fire. He was also responsible for discovering over 100 different kinds of herbs and medicinal plants, including tea, of course. It was claimed that he discovered these by one of his servants was boiling water and a tea leaf just happened to fall into it. No matter what happened though, the point is, tea was created. Anyways, we fast forward thousands of years until we arrive at the Tang dynasty, where Lu Yu decided to be the first person to write a book about tea. And until this point, tea had not had a name yet. If you wanted to refer to tea, you would use the word for bitter vegetable. However, now that this dude wanted to write a book specific to tea, he needed a character for it. So, he took bitter vegetable, removed 2 lines, and added another to form the new word for tea, cha. During the Tang dynasty, the Chinese people conquered the Turks, who had control over the Silk Road. And with this, trade flourished, cha included. Thus, the word cha was sent to the Middle East along with the rest of Asia. However, when it went to the Middle East, it went through Persia, where the suffix yi was added to it, becoming chai. From the 13th to the 16th century, the Persian people traded with the East African people, bringing chai there. Later in the 16th century, the Muslim Empire of Mughal conquered India, bringing the word chai to India. And during all of this, the Chinese language developed differently in different places. In Sichuan, where they speak Mandarin and Cantonese, it stayed as cha, but in Fujian, where they speak Wu Chinese, it started becoming more like zuo. And also, now is an important time to mention that there are different words for tea or cha in places where tea is grown naturally. For example, in Burmese, tea is called lakfak. And from this, you can deduce that most translations stay consistent because tea originates from one of 2 places. In Fujian, where they say zuo, and in the rest of China, where they say cha. The wonders of tea were not introduced to the rest of the world in places other than those 2 places mentioned, or else the word for tea would sound more like lakfak. Coming back to the history of tea, we enter the colonial period. In the 16th century, the Portuguese decided to head west to monopolize the spice trade, but after realizing the potential of tea, they decided to establish trade routes for tea instead. They set up ports in Canton and Macau, where cha is used for the word tea, and thus cha entered the Portuguese language in the form of chá. The Portuguese then colonized Brazil, and because they participated in the slave trade, they brought slaves from West Africa to Brazil, establishing cha as the dominant form of tea in both areas. However, during all of this, they never actually ended up commercializing tea, so tea stayed pretty local within Portugal and their colonies. And 100 years later, the Dutch started trading with the Chinese. However, they started trading at a port in Fujian, so they adopted the Fujian zuo. And apparently zuo sounds like tea to the Dutch. I don't know what zuo actually sounds like. If anybody's more fluent in Wu Chinese and can correct me, I'll pin your comment, but I have no idea what it sounds like, unfortunately. But we're going to assume that the Wu Chinese form of tea sounds pretty close to tea, which is why the Dutch adopted it as tea. Unlike the Portuguese, they didn't just return straight back to their home country. They made several stops before returning to their home country, the Netherlands. They explored Australia and the islands near Australia. They had a port in southeastern India, which injected tea into the language of Tamil. And they also had a port in the southernmost tip of Africa, injecting tea into Afrikaans and the languages north of South Africa. The word tea was also spread throughout most of Europe because the Dutch were the first to commercialize it. And finally, because all of Europe were the ones to colonize the Americas, all of the countries in the Americas use tea, except for Brazil, of course. Now, an interesting fact about tea in Europe, as we are all aware, the British love tea. It is deeply embedded within their culture, but why? In 1662, the King of England married the Princess of Portugal. So when the English people saw their king drinking this beverage, it became very popular among them. And it became so popular that there became class divides with how you took your tea. The more sugar or milk you add to your tea, the more lower class you appear to others. Also, fun fact, milk was added to tea to prevent the cups from shattering, because at the time, they didn't have cups nice enough to not shatter from hot tea. Or I should say, most people couldn't afford cups that wouldn't shatter because of hot tea. Also, another fun fact, with the absurd amount of tea that the British drink, which is over 900 cups per year per person, they still aren't the leading drinker of tea. This honor goes to Turkey, who consumes more than 1,300 cups of tea per person per year, which is just crazy. I can't imagine drinking more than 3 cups of anything per day other than water, let alone more than that for an entire year. Just the thought of that's absurd. Anyways, I got off topic. I'm just gonna end the video here. I appreciate your audience, and I'll talk to you later.